Okay, so imagine a race, a really high-stakes race between all of humanity and our planet's ability to actually support us. It's an idea that's over 200 years old, but you know what? It might be more relevant today than ever. We're going to dive into what's known as the Malthusian Trap. So, right at the heart of this whole thing, which by the way was thought up by Thomas Malthus way back in 1798, is this kind of brutal mathematical mismatch. On one side, you've got population. It doesn't just add, it multiplies. It's what he called geometric growth. But on the other side, you've got our food supply. And he argued it can only grow arithmetically, just one step at a time. You can already see the problem, right? That gap between the two is just going to get wider and wider. And this leads to the central, honestly, kind of terrifying question of his whole theory. I mean, if our population is a rocket ship and our food supply is just a staircase, what happens when that rocket ship just completely leaves the staircase in the dust? What happens when we as a species inevitably outrun our own dinner plate? Well, Malthus had an answer, and let me tell you, it wasn't a pretty one. He basically argued that nature, or even humanity itself, has these built-in mechanisms to stop this runaway growth. He called them population checks, and they're the forces that keep everything in a, let's say, a grim kind of balance. For Malthus, the solution was grimly simple. He called them checks, forces that limit population in one of two ways. You either find a way to reduce the birth rate, or you increase the death rate. Yeah, not a lot of great options there. So Malthus saw two paths. On the left, we have what he called preventive checks. This is us consciously choosing to tap the brakes. Marrying later, having fewer kids. But if we don't choose to tap the brakes, nature slams them for us. And that's what you see on the right, the positive checks. This isn't a choice. This is the crash itself. This is where famine, disease, and war step in to correct the imbalance. And this all builds into this relentless cycle. See, it starts with a boom, where the population just takes off way faster than resources. Then that leads to strain. Not enough food to go around, not enough jobs. Then the crisis hits. Those positive checks kick in, and they brutally correct the population back down to a level the land can support. And then, well, the whole cycle just starts all over again. This is the trap. Now, you'd think an idea this grim would just get forgotten, right? But Malthus's work had this shocking and profound legacy. It went way beyond economics and ended up providing a key piece of the puzzle for one of the most important scientific theories of all time. So the story goes that in 1838, a young Charles Darwin, who was really struggling to figure out how evolution worked, picked up Malthus's essay. And for him, it was like a massive light bulb just went on. So here's the crucial bit. Malthus was writing about human society, right? But Darwin saw a universal law of nature. Malthus described this world where way more people are born than can possibly survive, and that creates a struggle for existence. For Darwin, that was it. That was the key. This struggle was the engine of evolution. It was the force that decided which traits got passed on and which ones just vanished. And believe it or not, his influence didn't even stop with Darwin. Malthus was really the first person to merge biology and economics in this way. He gave us the basic idea of carrying capacity, the maximum population an environment can actually handle. And he kicked off a global debate about poverty and resources and our future that, let's be honest, we are still having today. Okay. But if his logic was so powerful, why are we all still here? Why didn't industrial societies just collapse into famine and chaos like he predicted they would? Well, this is where the Malthusian story takes its biggest plot twist. See, Malthus's core prediction was simple. As the population shot up, the amount of food for each person would plummet. But what actually happened was the complete opposite. We somehow ended up with more food per person than at any other time in human history. So what on earth did he get so wrong? Turns out, Malthus missed two absolutely gigantic game changers. First, the technological revolution. He just could not have imagined the massive leaps in farming we would achieve. He saw food growing one step at a time, but technology made food production grow exponentially too. And second, he totally missed what we call the demographic transition. He just assumed that if people could have more kids, they would. He never guessed that as societies get wealthier and more educated, people voluntarily choose to have smaller families. And that right there, that's the key flaw in his entire logic. His whole model was based on this view of human nature as this constant, unchanging force. But he was wrong. Our behavior, our choices, and especially our incredible ingenuity, well, they completely changed the rules of the game he thought we were all forced to play. So, case closed, right? Malthus was wrong. End of story? Well, not exactly. In the 21st century, his ideas are actually making a huge comeback, but with a new, much broader focus. Today, this is known as Neo-Malthusianism, and it basically takes Malthus's core logic, that idea of exponential growth hitting a hard limit, but it applies it to everything. We're not just talking about calories anymore. We're talking about clean water, breathable air, a stable climate, the total resources of a finite planet. So that race Malthus described, it's still on, but we've kind of changed the finish line. The debate isn't just about food supply anymore. Now it's about climate change, it's about water scarcity, and the health of our soil, and finding enough energy to power our world sustainably. The question has gotten so much bigger. And that is the question we're all left with today. We used our technology and our brains to solve the food problem that Malthus predicted. We innovated our way right out of his trap. The question is, can we do it again? He was wrong about the carrying capacity of our farms, but is he ultimately right about the carrying capacity of planet Earth? That's the Malthusian echo we're all living with today.